Hey guys, it's Kevin. Back again with another video about Dungeons and Dragons. I ran my first two sessions with my groups last week, one on Wednesday and one on Friday. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about, I guess, lessons learned from the first sessions and some weird stuff that happened maybe. I'm not going to go into detail about the plot and stuff, mostly because I don't think it's that exciting. But with two groups of players that are mostly new, there were a lot of weird hiccups that we had, and a lot of weird hiccups that I had. To begin with, I organized both groups specifically based on what I thought their playstyles would be like. One group was going to be more into role-playing, the other group would be more into combat, and so I adjusted their stories accordingly. The thing that I'm still kind of apprehensive about is whether or not I'm railroading my players too much, and railroading is a concept where in running campaigns where a DM has a predetermined path and forces the players onto them. Now that I've run my campaign and my players have successfully grabbed my plot hooks, I'm not sure whether or not I'm railroading them or they just got the plot hook. The whole point of the plot hook was to hook them into a plot, and they've been hooked. I feel like I gave them a decent amount of freedom where they felt like they could do whatever they wanted, but I'll admit that I need to work on, specifically as a DM, asking less leading questions, unless they're needed, of course, or maybe they're not. I don't know, I'm still figuring it out. In any case, my players seem to enjoy the stories as presented, and I guess that's really all that matters, because, I mean, when you're a DM, you're running a game for players, and if they're playing and they're having fun, none of that other stuff, like getting railroaded or whatever, is really an issue, unless someone straight up tells you, oh, I don't feel like I can do whatever I want. Then I feel like you're in the clear, or at least I'm in the clear. I'm open to any sort of criticism from my players, which is kind of difficult because a lot of them are new, so they don't necessarily know what they want out of a campaign, and I certainly don't know what they want out of a campaign either. I know what I wanted out of a campaign, which is happy players, so that's my only goal. If they're being entertained, it's fine. As a plus, I get entertained, which is great. The second group that I ended up running was kind of an interesting case because I had initially planned for both groups to be running in the same campaign concurrently. They'd basically be existing in separate continuities, so they'd be doing the same exact storylines, or they'd be in the same exact places and experiencing the same exact stories, but by virtue of being a separate group, they would have done things differently. But the week before we did our first session, during like our session zeros, we had like 3 session zeros or something like that, group 2, or team 2, I'm calling them team 2 now, asked me if they could have their own campaign, and I thought, why not? If I could write more, so that was fine. What ended up happening was that I had to make a whole dungeon. Makes it sound like I didn't want to make a dungeon. I'm going to end up making dungeons a lot anyway, so this was some pretty good practice. But I ended up making a whole dungeon, and it was like not that big. It was like 8 or 9 rooms, and they spent maybe half an hour or so in each room, which was pretty good. Maybe not half an hour, that's actually a little long. I don't remember actually how long they took. I actually did not have any idea what they were going to do in any of them. On purpose, I made really vague riddles, really vague solutions to puzzles. At one point, they solved a puzzle in a way that I didn't really expect. I had like a really simple, this is my first dungeon, so it's like I have no idea what makes for a complex or like good puzzle, but there was basically this puzzle where it was like a hallway full of arrow, like it was like a Indiana Jones kind of hallway where arrows would shoot out if you stepped on alternating platforms, and I had actually planted a kobold NPC for them to use. The NPC would run across the platforms and then deactivate the traps. But what I didn't realize was the preceding room was like a bone room. There were just tons and tons of bones everywhere in this room. They fought some skeletons. One of my players ended up grabbing just armfuls of bones and throwing them onto the pressure plates. The arrows would basically activate after you stepped off the pressure plate so that when you stepped onto the next one, you would get shot or whatever. Anyway, they just spent about 20 minutes in that room throwing bones onto platforms until one of them realized that they could use the kobold. So then they started throwing the kobold around to try to get him to the switch that activated or turned off the arrows. And then finally someone was like, why don't we just tell the kobold to run across because he doesn't activate them? So they did. And it was great. I mean, it took them like twice as long, but you know, it ended up being really funny. And they thought they were super smart. And I actually thought they were super smart. When I wrote the dungeon and I put the bone room before the arrow room, I wasn't thinking that they were going to use the bones or anything. I had put it in as an afterthought. I just wanted them to fight skeletons. That's it. I ended up having to make up about 75% of that dungeon. The dungeon also taught me a lot about stat blocks and monsters and prep. Lots of prep. I had to prep, and I did this for the previous session as well. This was my Friday group that did the dungeon. I had stat blocks ready to go in case they encountered, you know, I had planned that they were going to encounter these kinds of enemies, even if they didn't have the stat block ready. But the one monster that I didn't prepare for the dungeon was a gelatinous cube, which ended up being really bad. When I got the stat block, I had just grabbed it, the first thing that said gelatinous cube or whatever, and it ended up being like a really high level monster, and I had to give him some DM fiats, as it were, to let them kill it, because I didn't want everyone to wipe on the first room, literally like 10 minutes into the game. So that was my fault. I should have reskinned a smaller creature or something like that. The encounter ended up actually being really funny because they were all afraid of the cube, and that was partly my fault, and by partly I mean mostly my fault. Someone shot the cube with an arrow, and I didn't describe it as doing as much damage as it should have, and as a result, no one wanted to actually hit it. It actually has really low AC or armor class, which means it's really easy to hit it with dice rolls, but no one wanted to walk up to it. Also, and I totally forgot about this because I asked them about it later, about the fight with the cube, but the first thing that it did was walk up and smack someone in the chest for like 8 points of damage or something, and these guys are all level 1, so the guy who got hit had 12 HP, and you know, after his first encounter with this ooze, this cube, he had 4, so he didn't want to go up and fight it. So that was my fault. Running combat is kind of also really weird. I held up the game a little bit by like looking up rules. The thing that I should have done was make a quick ruling immediately. You know, tell them that this wouldn't be how it is every single time, but promise to look it up later and figure something out. For example, one of my players wanted to use his shield to attack someone, which isn't in the rules per se. So at the time I didn't let him, although I should have. That was really bad of me. Afterwards, I went and looked up how people deal with shields in other games. Generally, it's a bonus attack, or which sounds really overpowered and I don't want to do. Or you use the shield as a bludgeoning attack, which sounds fine. It's only 1d4 damage. That's not a big deal. Or you use it as like to like shove people prone and stuff, and that would take up your whole action. And that sounds pretty good. So that's probably how I'm gonna implement that rule in the future. Speaking of mistakes, with Team 1, which is the RP group, there was a puzzle at the end of their mini dungeon, because I did give them a mini dungeon. I should have let them fail it, actually. I gave them too many clues because I was kind of like, I wanted them to get it. I wanted them to like, whoa, you know, like get that aha moment. Maybe I should have been more specific about things. This really falls on my shoulders, I think. If I wanted to get players to grab a hook, then I should have dangled it a little bit more tastily, as it were. They ended up solving the riddle anyway, but it did take a little bit, and I did have to give them like a kind of a nudge in the right direction. Although I guess that's how you are as a DM, or that's what you do as a DM, right? I don't know. I'm the only DM I know. The one thing that did shock me was how long the sessions took. They took a long time to play. For Team 1, which was the RP heavy group, we played from 8 to like 12, so that's like a whole 3-hour session. And that one was mostly RP. Like the first, I would say 75% of that was was talking to NPCs, talking to each other, and figuring out, you know, the setting and stuff like that, which is fine. So the back quarter of that 3-hour session was just fighting. And then my second group, or team 2, which is combat heavy, I don't even know how long that one was. We played from 8 to maybe 1 or so. That was a really long one. To be fair, I actually did not expect the dungeon to take that long. There was also a lot of falling action that needed to happen after the dungeon for plot purposes. So that definitely contributed to a lot of it. Otherwise, I think it was a really successful first week running Dungeons and Dragons. My first thought running it was, this is very strange because all of my previous experiences running Dungeons and Dragons was from the book. So this was the first time I had to run like my own original content, and that was nerve-wracking because I was afraid that no one would like it or it would sound like bullshit or something like that. But everyone seemed to enjoy themselves, and that's all I'm really aiming for. I just want everyone to enjoy themselves. I did record both of the sessions, but again, I'm not really keen on uploading them. For one, the audio quality is terrible, and 2, it's really just 4 or 5 people just kind of yelling at each other for 3 hours. It's actually not that entertaining. It's way more fun to play it, or run it in my case. I'm excited to, you know, keep running these campaigns for as long as I can. I'm really excited to see where my players take themselves, how my setting that I set up, you know, is shaped by them and stuff. That sounds really corny, but like I'm really excited about that. I don't know what I'm gonna do for our next video. I will definitely, I think I'm gonna start doing these like weekly session, like after session things, even though I said in my first video that I wasn't really interested in doing them. But I think it'd be cool to do like a lessons learned kind of thing, more as like a log for myself. I just want to see where I started from as a DM and where I end up, you know, in like a month or so. I think that would be really cool. I think I'm going to be doing a video on actually writing the campaign. I actually had a draft for a video about the setting, or at least writing it, done before I did this video, but I wanted to get this one out before I started my sessions for the week. So that'll be coming someday. I don't know when. This particular vlog came 3 weeks after the first one, even though I said that I'd be doing one soon. So that was a fucking lie. In any case, thanks for watching, and subscribe, I guess. That sounds weird. I don't want you to like subscribe, but I guess that's the goal, isn't it? So subscribe. Maybe like the video. That'd be nice.
I wanna word you up into my life. Let's roll up to be a single star in the sky.